Hey guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Nick. This is my mom, Jen.
Hi, guys.
And today we will be watching The Bloody 100th. This is the companion documentary to Masters of the Air.
Yeah.
Kind of rounding out this adventure we started.
Yeah.
Good to see kind of the...
Well, and I think there's some interviews in here maybe of some of the actual guys, but years ago.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And then more, say, like photograph and footage of the actual planes and some of the guys involved.
Maybe
and
the family members and stuff.
Yeah. Kind of the stuff that we missed in like the main show, just because most of the veterans.
Well, and I know a lot of it. People are saying they left out a lot of stuff, and I think they had to hurry with COVID and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So they,
But still, overall, I mean, we're only a week out from the finale, and as far as I'm concerned, they if you forgive the pun, they really stuck the landing with this one. Yeah. It was still a phenomenal series.
Yeah. I mean, to me, comparatively, Band of Brothers was better.
Me too.
Just because it was, I think, because more time was taken.
It was more complete.
More complete, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people said, and I also kind of had this thought too, like, as amazing as the Tuskegee Airmen were, I wish they had been introduced sooner.
Yeah,
somehow.
there was
just because they were introduced in the second last episode. Yeah. So there wasn't as much time to get to know them. Yeah. And for such a legendary group of fighters, it would have been cool to kind of get more of their story. So as is, it's definitely like an A grade show, just not A plus the way that Band of Brothers was.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting more behind the scenes, more of the true, story of these heroes. So let's go watching.
It's like a piece of sculpture, and it's lovely in the air when you.
Rosie!
Oh my God!
Wow!
In the cold blue skies over Europe,
Tom Hanks.
A new kind of combat was fought in an environment that had never been experienced before.
Yeah.
One of these groups, hyper-aggressive and undisciplined, suffered so many casualties in such a short period of time, it became known as the Bloody 100th.
The German army invaded Holland and Belgium early this morning by land and from parachutes.
That would be more like a Red Dawn scenario, right?
Yeah. Good old Churchill.
War against a monstrous tyranny, never surpassed in the dark and lamentable catalogue of human crime.
One of the most quotable human beings ever born.
Yeah.
Like everything he said was so gold.
Yeah.
And dastardly attack by Japan, a state of war.
So why did Japan attack?
They were trying to cripple America's ability to stop their fleets in the Pacific. It was like a preemptive thing.
But why were they involved in the first place? Were they trying to join Germany?
No. I mean, they were allied with Germany, but they were trying to conquer their own empire across the Pacific, and they wanted to take out a potential rival.
Okay.
Britain's Bomber Command had been striking Germany incessantly, but ineffectively since 1940, taking huge losses in night raids that often missed their targets.
Right.
Yep.
It isn't as if it's a chore for me to talk to you because I want to speak on my favorite subject, the Army Air Forces. I can't speak from...
Yeah, he was in it too.
Young men of America, your future's in the sky. Your wings are waiting.
So many of them died.
I was in the middle of my sophomore year in college and didn't have a lot on my mind but chasing girls and drinking whiskey.
They just took the whole fraternity, right?
Superiority of the Aryan nation. And I had a sense of frustration that I couldn't do anything about it. I went down the next day and volunteered to be an Air Force cadet.
Before enlisting, thousands of American flyers had never set foot in an airplane.
Yeah.
After about 10 hours, we done solo.
10.
And when those wheels leave the ground, there's no one there to help you. You're on your own.
I mean, today you need hundreds of hours before you can get
navigator. Because I was a flight
there he is.
as a pilot.
Hey, buddy.
I got washed out. I'll never forget the guy that washed me out was Lieutenant Maytag. Proper name for washing out a prospective flying student.
Rare day off, we would dogfight. I never enjoyed anything more than I did at that time.
Before it all actually started, eh?
Yeah.
Just graduated from flying school, along with me, were all assigned to fly the B-17.
Go young, oh man.
And it was called the Flying Fortress because it had so many 50 caliber guns.
The feel of the B-17 was wonderful.
Nice looking plane.
Mm-hmm.
We were told before we went overseas, you look on your left and your right, and only one of you is going to come back. We were going overseas to die.
Ugh.
Pilot asked me, what had you done before? I said, well, recently I did the work of a cowboy. And he said, well, fine, you'll be cowboy from now.
It's a young outfit, and it has some pretty reckless young commanders. A guy named Gail Clevin, who's a squadron.
Buck and Bucky.
Their hats cocked on one side of their heads, and they were pretty cocky. They'd be at the officers' club, and they would say, Lieutenant, taxi over here, I want to talk to you.
And here they are flying an airplane, doing something that they love, for a country that they love, on a mission that they believe in.
Yeah.
We believe that the Nazis and the fascists have asked for it, and they're going to get it.
They could muscle their way to the target through waves of enemy planes.
At the fighter fields, Thunderbolts are ready.
God.
The bombers received limited protection from the smaller, more nimble fighter planes, like the P-47 Thunderbolt, whose limited fuel capacity forced it to leave the bombers.
Oh, yeah.
Without specialized equipment, without breathing oxygen that was being pumped to them.
As soon as we got to altitude, we had to go on oxygen, so we had an oxygen mask clasped on our face and the start.
Remember those guys that got frostbite?
Yeah.
We were operating in 50 or 60 degrees below.
Oh.
The skin of the plane is not steel, it's aluminum. So that meant flak just blew holes in the plane.
Ugh.
You can hear it.
It was to very heavy anti-aircraft fire, and it was frightening.
Absolutely.
The Norden bomb sight. It's supposed to be so accurate that you can bomb from 20,000 feet and drop your bombs into a pickle barrel.
Whoa.
We dropped our bombs, a couple of fighter attacks, nobody got hurt. And I thought, well, this isn't so bad.
Yeah, that's one.
Everything was about to change for the 8th with the largest raid they would undertake up to now. A double strike against ball bearing plants in Schweinfurt and Messerschmitt factories in Regensburg.
The bad one.
Yeah.
We saw that red line going all across Germany, and we thought, holy cow.
Jeez.
So all of a sudden, LeMay gets his guys up and gets them all formed, and the other bombardment division hasn't even taken
That's
off
what
yet.
it was.
Yeah.
So it ends up, instead of a 10-minute gap, a 2-hour gap.
Oh.
Flew across the channel. It's a beautiful day out there. They hit the Dutch coast, and
Training we'd had previously gave us the idea that we could outrun German fighters. Learned that that was not true.
there was flak. There were fighters.
The cockpit is on fire. Clevin turns around and he looks at the radio gunner, and the radio gunner doesn't have any legs.
Oh, yeah.
Fire was coming out of every opening in that hull. I dreamed about that one for a long time.
Jesus.
Yeah.
A member of that flight crew was fighting so democracy and freedom could reign. But when you're in combat, you know who you're fighting for?
Yourself. Oh, yeah.
The guy to your right. The guy just ahead of you. And
everything you can see right in front of you.
Perilously low on fuel, the Regensburg group fought its way over the Alps, down to North Africa.
Yeah, they just made it, eh?
Actually, no, Bremen was the one where Rosie came back.
The other one,
later on. But still, they took a lot of losses there.
Having made it to North Africa by day's end, the crews of the 100th
Oh, it's just
group
they did
were
exactly the same in the show.
weary,
Yep.
but feeling lucky to be alive.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Any commander that had to commit forces to combat when they were outnumbered, it's like sentencing men to death.
Yeah.
Rosie Rosenthal arrived at the group as a replacement crew for crews that were lost. and turned around, and here was the squadron commander. He said, "Lucky, you better go home and get some sleep. You're flying tomorrow."
Wasn't Lucky one of the ones in the POW camp when they got there? When Bucky got there?
I think
on the left side?
Yeah, because there was Crank, there was...
Oh, maybe it was Crank, I'm thinking.
But there was a couple guys there, so I think you're right.
500,000 pounds of bombs, 2 3/4 million rounds of ammunition.
Just the one?
Clevin tried to move up and take over the group when he was shot down.
Clevin got hit.
That's when Buck went down.
Yeah. And for all intents and purposes, everybody thinks he's dead.
Yeah.
After we dropped our bombs, I brought what was left of the formation home, which was only 6 airplanes. Egan was in London on leave, and he got word.
Oh.
Egan was so incensed that he immediately canceled his leave and returned to the base and said, "I'm leading the next mission."
Egan makes a speech that we're going to fly this one for Clevin, and this is a revenge raid.
They were all in.
If you had 13 aircraft as opposed to 18, the Germans are going to attack the lesser target.
We were immediately attacked by over 200 German.
Oh, Jesus.
I was sprayed with shrapnel flak loading cannon shell and knocked to the floor.
Oh. This is when only one came back. Yeah.
Finally, one of ours came in.
Only one airplane of the 100 to return. Rosenthal was the man that was flying that airplane.
When Bucky Egan and Clevin were shot down, it was really a tremendous morale factor
think,
because
well, that's it.
Everybody just assumed they were in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 100th had arrived in England 4 months before Munster, with 140 flying officers. After Munster, only 3 of them were still able to fly and fight.
And people became worried about us. They called us the Bloody 100th.
There were distressing reports from flight surgeons and Air Force psychiatrists of abnormal behavior among crewmen.
Well, you can only see so much death and torment before you snap.
Fundamentally, we must depend for this recovery on the patient's own recuperative powers.
Yeah,
That's what happened.
Best be exercised away from a hospital atmosphere.
Yeah. Giving them breaks and stuff. But
them out of the wartime environment.
You're still there. It's still in your mind. It's still happening. Yeah. Yeah.
There are some people whose chemical and mental makeup is such that they just can't stand this sort of thing.
They can't. Yeah. Some people just aren't mentally strong enough.
We couldn't afford to have it affect the morale of the rest of the people that were going out every day and continuing to perform their duties.
The few that are left, you know.
Yeah.
They were much more themselves a target for German fighter defense.
Every few cubic feet of this pile contains a plane. $22,000 of American labor.
I knew how much my mother worried about me, and I knew that she would be getting a missing in action.
Oh, yeah.
Airmen were given parachutes but not trained how to use them. And they were given only scant training in escape.
Oh, yeah. I remember we wondered about that.
Or were they properly warned when civilians in bombed-out towns began to attack downed airmen in increasing...
Yeah.
Clevin, he goes down, and he can see that farmers are gathering all around. The next thing he remembers, a farmer has a pitchfork, 1/9 of an inch, in his chest, and wants to pray.
Oh. He hands me a 3x5 card, and there's my name and birth date, my parents' name and my address.
The Germans had spies.
Okay.
Sometimes effective in persuading unsuspecting airmen to give up information they considered inconsequential, but which master interrogators prized.
Yep.
Clevin and Egan arrived at Stalag Luft 3 within days of each other. Clevin was immediately wisecracking.
Everything was done in a military way to keep their minds busy, to keep discipline, and basically to keep everybody alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just break down. And,
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Because you don't know when it's going to end. And
codenamed Overlord. It was scheduled for May 1944, just 6 months away.
Yeah, I guess it takes time to get the ships there and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was the fighter plane that the 8th Air Force had been waiting for.
Which one was this?
It was the P-51 Mustang.
P-51, okay.
Yep.
The Mustang.
Proboscis.
Longest range fighter in the world. Speed, fast climb.
Oh, then they didn't have to turn back because they ran out of range.
Yep.
When we went to Emden, and I saw all those gorgeous P-51s, I thought maybe for the first time, I thought I'm going to get through.
Aww.
The casualty rate for German pilots on the Western Front between January and May 1944.
Holy shit.
When they had the briefing and they pulled the curtain back and the tape went all the way to Berlin.
Oh.
Just stunned silence and then just a shout.
I did start a tunnel. They had an old toilet that had a tile floor, and I figured, well, let's see if we can do something here and have these removable tiles, and we could start digging. The guards caught that almost immediately.
Damn. Oh, here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through a tunnel that they dug, it was known as the Great Escape. All but 2 were recaptured, and 50 were executed by the Germans. What little decent relations we had with the Germans evaporated completely after that.
Yeah.
Well, because it made him look stupid, right? Yeah.
I would accept the 100th Bomb Group. And I asked him, when do you want me to report? And he said, this afternoon.
Jeez.
Wow. What's his name again?
I think that was...
It was to ask General LeMay if he would take the 100th off of operations for 2 days.
I think it's the colonel that named Rosie, like the commander of the 350th.
Okay.
Tom Jeffrey, he was dynamic, charismatic.
Yeah, I think he was like the last like colonel or whatever, the one who said that I'm here by choice, you know.
Yeah.
I concluded that I had been extremely fortunate and lucky to have survived, and that I shouldn't push it any further.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I said, what the heck? And headed right for the tower. And everybody hit the deck.
Yeah.
Buzzed the field 3 or 4 times and then came in. And then somebody approached me and said, Rosie, did you know that General Hughlin? And there coming into the debriefing room was General Hughlin. He came over and grabbed my hand. He said, one hell of a buzz job, Rosie.
That the 8th Air Force will expend every airplane that it has in its inventory to be sure that these people got ashore.
All or nothing.
Well, yeah. Everybody wants to go home.
Mm-hmm.
I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory.
Well said, Ike.
Wow.
We looked down and saw thousands of ships in an armada down there. It was so thrilling.
I love that they did all this filming, eh?
Yeah. Meanwhile, Crosby is just asleep.
Yeah.
In August 1944, the Red Army discovered Majdanek, indisputable evidence of Hitler's program to exterminate the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Downed airmen were still streaming into Stalag Luft 3, among them a number of black pilots, including Second Lieutenants Alexander Jefferson and Richard Macon.
The bomber crews that are making those long, dangerous runs say that they appreciated the Red Tails more than any of the other squadrons that they flew with.
Finally, down the line came a long, tall Kentucky hillbilly.
Clevin.
And he walked back and said, "By cracky, I think I'll take this boy."
I was paralyzed from my waist down. So once they saw that I couldn't move, the Germans tried to tell them who will give up his bottom bunk for this man. And finally, the guy from Texas said, he can have my bunk, I'll go with them. He and I became the best of friends.
Men had to come together to survive the prisoner camp. They let whatever racial attitudes, racial animosities go, or at least lessen.
You got bigger things to deal with.
Yeah, yeah.
To knock out one plant in World War II, a place called Leuna near Merseburg, it took 6,000 bombers flying about 40 missions. to knock that plan out.
Jeez.
God.
Knowing that we couldn't return to our base, there was smoke and fire in the plane.
Oh, yeah.
And I yelled, Amerikansky, Roosevelt, Stalin, Churchill, Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola, Lucky Strike.
Raid was Rosie's 52nd and final mission.
Wow.
The most raids flown by a pilot in the 100th.
That we were going to be evacuated immediately and we would be leaving the camp within an hour.
In the winter.
Yeah.
Moving you for your safety. That was what they said, but we all knew better.
Mm-hmm.
And use them as human shields. And it's the worst European winter in 100 years.
Oh.
One day we were walking around in the camp. Somebody says, "There's a tank, there's a Sherman tank." And we looked, and sure enough, there was a Sherman tank. Rung down the swastika while they opened up Old Glory and raised it, and we came to attention. That was the greatest salute I ever gave.
It was very emotional. In many ways, it was hard to believe that we were finally going to be able to go home.
Oh.
The German radio has just announced that Hitler is dead.
The 100th flew one final mission, part of what was called Operation Chowhound. They passed over fields of brilliantly colored tulips.
Yeah.
And one of them, the heads of the flowers had been clipped to say, "Many thanks, Yanks." The crews of the 100th packed up their duffels, and the local folk from the villages around Thorpe Abbotts, dressed in their Sunday finest, gathered to see them off for their long journey home.
I went to the public telephone and called my mother and told them I was home. Of course, she immediately broke down. And they came out. They drove out to Fort McPherson, and they picked me up, and I got home.
My dad and mother were there. There was a big reunion, of course, and I was halfway to the moon. And then I saw my wife-to-be.
When I left the service, I was exhausted. I've been.
Oh, I bet so.
And finally, after being there for 6 months, I heard about an opportunity.
Oh, right.
Yeah. A beautiful woman who was also a lawyer and was going over as a prosecutor. And within 10 days, we were engaged.
Jesus, dude.
We were married over in Nuremberg.
Wow, they didn't mess around, eh? Yeah.
Powerless now, sitting abjectly and being tried and being convicted. And when I saw that, that in fact ended the war for me.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
In it, the 8th Air Force suffered the highest casualty rate of any of the American armed forces.
For all these intervening years, was a life changer for me.
Yeah. Everybody.
Saved my life any number of times. They were the friends of all friends.
You have to give all the credit to the men and the women that sacrificed their lives and basically saved the world from fascism.
The freedoms that we enjoy did not come about by accident. They were bought and paid for.
And it must be so frustrating for them to see stuff that happens in the world now or did when they were alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
For what they went through.
Well, even before World War II, there was an American Nazi party.
Yeah.
You know?
What yeah. I'm glad we got to see that though after to see the real guys and stuff because we missed that a little bit. Like from Band of Brothers, they had integrated it so well because a lot of them were able to interview and stuff that was still alive, right? Where this one's
because I mean that show was made going on 25 years ago now. You know.
Yeah. So I mean they were old then,
but
there was still. That's good though. They've gotten them down in other interviews and things.
Yeah,
right?
archival
There's a lot of
stuff.
Historians that seem to know sort of word for word what happened to them and stuff. But so many people died, eh?
Yeah.
So many young men never got a chance to start a life, or
Mm-hmm.
because just think how different it would be, right? If the war hadn't happened, all of the people that, that died would have had lives, and how different everything would have been, eh?
Yeah, I mean, you could really say, the human species was just never the same.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and like they said that, had they had to take out some of the guys that were not mentally able to cope with it all. But imagine when they went home, I mean, and they weren't, each guy was just back with their family or their hometown or whatever. So it was that kind of struggling by yourself, right? At least here you had your buddy to rely on, and he knew what you're going through because you all went through the same thing.
Exactly.
But when you got home, people probably just didn't understand, right?
Well, and they called it combat fatigue, shell shock.
All these things. And you're back home now. Get on. What's wrong? Get on with your life. And it's like, how do you pick up and carry on, right? And obviously some of them were strong and able to go on and university degrees and good rewarding careers. And
well, I mean, look at Rosie. He was like one of the toughest ones around, like as we saw, not enlisting, but like re-entering the service, when he was ready to go home because he felt he had to do it.
Yeah, you gotta leave everybody behind that was still fighting, and then to go on to those Nuremberg trials and stuff. I mean, I think some guys would probably said, "I want nothing to do with any of it ever again. That's it. That's the only way I can cope." Right?
Yeah.
But he jumped right back into it, and
like you need to see, these tormentors and these mass murderers, and you need to see them like defeated.
Yeah.
You need to see that it's finally
like
over.
Said, that's true. Yeah.
Some people would kind of need either like in like the paper or maybe just being there. You just kind of need to see that like what I did mattered. Like the men responsible for all of this.
Yeah.
You need to see something happen with them.
Yeah. And what we didn't see too, and I'm hoping happened though, is that in Band of Brothers they showed how they got together every so many years, right? Till they were, dwindling numbers and stuff. But I'm wondering, some of you guys probably know.
I think a couple of you guys were saying
that they do get together. Like, because I was waiting for some of them to say, "Oh, I still hear from so and so," or "I know he did this," or
well, and just like from what I could tell, like in the footage when like Jefferson and Macon were talking, it seemed like they were in kind of the same spot.
In the same,
and I can imagine them hopefully in particular would be
friends.
Like best friends forever.
Because they even those guys, all of these guys, right? It was very rare probably that two buddies from the same town got to go through everything, right? It was more of you became friends and became so close and all went through the same thing. And, didn't know each other in the beginning.
Guys from all walks of life. You had like university educated lawyers. You had coal miners. You had farmers.
That's the thing, right? We're all here for a common purpose. We're all just young men. Never mind what anybody did for a living. Nobody's better than anybody here. We all have to learn to fly the plane, drop the bombs, and
war is the great equalizer.
But didn't we hear during this series that they had received extensive training on what to do because we wondered what kind of training they had.
I mean, like I think
when they had to bail and when they got captured, and they said barely anything. Here's your parachute. Didn't tell them how to work it, or
I think mostly it's like what air crews would receive now versus what they got then.
Yeah, right.
Because like back in the day, like they would have received like a not comprehensive, but like maybe just like a general course of like all these different subjects. Like here's because with the Tuskegees we saw that scene where they gave them false identities so they could like blend into the civilian population. And here's your name, here's what you say here, and so it's like by comparison it's still not much, but it's like back then it was like as prepared as they could be, maybe.
Well, like Tom Hanks was saying, they weren't prepared at all for that part. It was. Yeah. We need to focus on giving you the flying training and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And never mind the rest of it. We'll just hope it doesn't happen.
Well, and then like when they started, they said like most of them hadn't even set foot in a plane before. It reminds me of in Band of Brothers when they were saying that like most guys had never been in a plane before, and then like they'd spend a day jumping off a plane with a parachute and everything, and how like these men across all the different branches were like pioneering different forms of like travel, of warfare, of technology, because like planes had never been this advanced before, where you could have like a plane that could drop bombs and have guys in them with turrets,
right?
Because before it was like just like one guy flying a bomber, drop his bombs, but now you could have like a whole crew in there, and with they could advance to the P-51 with just like how fast it could go and how much it could do, and back and forth. And partly it's like with the the rigors of war are like wartime, there's a shit ton of like technology advancing, like civilization, because you're just say like pressed for time, and all of your best minds are being put on this one thing.
That's right. And
you know, because things like the radio or plane engines or all of these
nothing else mattered except that.
All of these different things come out of the war. So like we said with like, you know, the human lives, how that would be different, but also like how civilization would be different. Like maybe certain things would have been invented years later, or certain things, you know, we never would have had a need for stuff like a bomb site if there was no war. You know, things like that. It's just like all encompassing with like culture and, you know, like technology and yeah,
it's all very complicated, eh?
But yeah, that's the, you know, the final chapter in a saga we started a long while back with Saving Private Ryan. You know, we went through Band of Brothers, the Pacific, and now with these boys of the Bloody 100th. You know, just all branches, you know, all walks of life, and seeing their sacrifices, their achievements, you know. And
well, and then for us, we think about our family, right? Because we have two that, you know, one was boots on the ground in Italy on a motorcycle and stuff, and then my dad wasn't there, but he was here and flying and teaching and all that stuff, like lieutenants. So we think about all them and the young men that they were. Because these days, Grandpa, Dad's dad was 21 years old, and my dad was 20. Like they were these men,
And like some of you guys were saying how like that generation versus this generation, like so much more like pressure and so many expectations on guys who were like 19 and 20, like we said, they were made like chiefs and captains, and there was so much like that they had to do, and, you know, like leading missions, or just the fact that you had to go to war and learn all these things, you know, just like versus today where it's like, it's just, you know, so much was put on them and so much was asked of them. You know, they paid the ultimate price, many of them, you know. So you know, like we always say, we are eternally grateful for all of the sacrifice and service of past and current, you know, servicemen and women around the world. You know, we can enjoy, you know, freedom and all of the things that we can enjoy, you know, with democracy and everything because of them, you know.
That's right.
Everything was paid for in blood, you know.
Can't let it get lost, right?
No. So we always have to remember. So thank you once again for joining us for this, you know, very emotional as expected. But we, you know, we love how we finally got to see kind of the real faces, but to hear from them, you know.
And see some of the real footage and stuff. I mean, that's heartbreaking, but
it is, but it's necessary ultimately. So thank you for joining us. Hopefully you enjoyed as well. If you want to catch the full length of our reaction, I'll put a link down to our Patreon below. Check out this and all the other movies and shows we do. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. And that's all we have for you today. So we will see you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.